But first of all, we're going to hear about the story of Gareth Jameson. And you might have seen the story in the Wicklow People, and people have got in contact with us about Gareth's story. And this morning, Ronan Coveney, our producer here today, spoke with Gareth.
Yeah, good morning, Declan. I spoke with Gareth. I know some of our listeners may have seen this in the Wicklow People a number of days ago, and Gareth got in touch with us there during the week. And it's in relation to the 133 bus route. And I know Gareth is a wheelchair user, and he's previously relied on this service to go about his daily life. So he explained the situation to me.
Well, see, I was able to manage the buses up to about 6 or 7 years ago. I'm in a wheelchair and well able to walk a little bit, not too much. And I was able to climb up onto the buses until they put a stop to that. It was all about health and safety. For about 6 or 7 years, I haven't been on a CIE bus.
So, as you said there, Declan, it's for about 6 or 7 years he hasn't been able to get the bus and go about his daily life in around Wicklow and going into and out of Dublin. And also he's a user of the Sunbeam House services, so he hasn't been able to get the bus and he's been relying on lifts. And however, there were new buses introduced on the 133. I'm sure many people have seen them, the new double-decker buses, and they're interchanged with single-decker buses. And with the wheelchair accessible double-decker buses on the route, he thought, and particularly they have stickers now with wheelchair stickers on them, he thought maybe this would be the end to his car journeys and his reliance on cars. However, that wasn't meant to be.
Ready for last year. Everything was meant to be, like wheelchair friendly. Everything had to be done for last year, and now this is 2016 and it's going on sale. And I do see the double-decker buses, and they're just tormenting me with the badges.
So he was in touch with Bus Eireann over numerous occasions about this, and I asked him what reasons they've given him that he can't get on these new buses and the older buses.
I'm getting one that they're not trying, two that some of the footpaths ain't ready, but the bus pulls up right across the road from my gate, and I do go to Sunbeam House, and the bus pulls up there where I have to depend on lifts. So I have no independence now.
Right, so to sum up Garrett's story there, they've got the old buses,
yep,
and he was able to get on before, but there was a change in policy of health and safety or something like that.
Exactly.
That was the old buses. Now they have the new buses, which are the double-decker ones.
Yeah, which have wheelchair stickers on them.
Right.
Which should be accessible for him. However, there's an issue with that, Declan, in that if he wants to get on the bus, he has to ring up Bus Eireann 24 hours in advance, and they have to take out seats out of a so-called wheelchair accessible bus. So they have to, in the depot, a day beforehand, take out seats to accommodate a wheelchair. And then there's the other issue of the older buses which they use on the route, which due to issues with footpaths at the bus stops around the county, they won't let their drivers stop and use the wheelchair, electric wheelchair on at the bus stops around the county.
Right, and the new buses, they want, I believe, for the new buses, they want the infrastructure of the footpaths changed.
Exactly, they want these, I don't know, some people might have seen them around the county. They're like little, the footpaths are sort of raised a little bit, so wheelchair users can more easily get on the bus stops, on the buses.
And Dublin Bus are pointing out in a very long statement that the way these footpaths are changed is it's nothing to do with them. It's to do with the National Transport Authority and the local authority.
That's it, exactly.
Okay, thanks, Ronan, for that. Now, what about Gareth Jameson, his story? Well, the local authority mentioned as they should change the footpaths to facilitate these buses, which would be half of the problem for Gareth sorted out. I don't know how he's going to sort out the ringing up 24 hours a day or 24 hours in advance to see that he will be on the bus. But let's talk to a local councillor along the route of the 133, and that is John Snell in Rathnew of the Sinn Féin party. Good morning to you, John.
Good morning, Declan.
Good morning to you. So there's Gareth now. He needs the footpaths changed.
Yeah, and look, it's quite obvious from the story there that the one person that's, I suppose, neglected in all this is Gareth and his independence, because people who know Gareth Jameson know that he's a fiercely independent individual. He's held world records in European world records, European championships. He's been to the Paralympics in Athens, and he's a very, very well-liked individual. And as he said himself in the audio you played there, he was capable of going on the bus up to 5 or 6 years ago. And what's very disappointing for me as a public representative listening to the story is that the NTA and Wicklow County Council over the last number of years put in infrastructure, and in the bus stop where Gareth's talking about, across from his family home, the same in Rathnew Village in Ashford and Newtown Mount Kennedy. Only in recent years they've been through the process of putting in new bus stops and pull-in lanes, and the Corbin has been put into a specific height to accommodate for buses. And now to hear this, that, potentially it's not suitable for the 133 buses. Because
they changed the buses.
Disappointing. Yeah, it's disappointing to say.
Well, they obviously have to update their fleet. So you have to sort of respect that, I suppose, the new 161 double-decker vehicles. But the infrastructure that was put in is now not suitable. So you've got to go back to the drawing board and basically revise the footpaths together with the NTA. So, is that going to be happening, or is that the solution that people see?
Well, definitely, Declan. It has been raised at our municipal district meeting. The municipal administrator for East Wicklow is in contact with the road section, because there seems to be a lack of clarity around what actually is to be done and who's to do it. And ultimately, for people like Gareth, where they're looking for equality and fairness, it doesn't matter who does it once it gets done. But we do need Bus Eireann, we need the National Transport Authority, and we need Wicklow County Council to come together on this pretty soon. As Gareth pointed out, he's listened to this last year and he doesn't want to, be on your radio show next year, still looking and fighting for something that could be quite simply sorted out between all parties,
Yeah, well, Dublin Bus, not Dublin, but Bus Eireann say it's nothing to do with them, really. They've just updated the fleet. They want the infrastructure, the roads, okay, and then they will accommodate the wheelchair, providing, of course, Gareth rings up, 24 hours. Now, 24 hours before he might be waiting on some appointment or something. He probably mightn't know to 23 hours, but that seems to be too late. But 24 hours in advance of the need to get on the bus, and they will then take out the seats. So that's their suggestion of accessibility to all, is tell us 24 hours in advance that you want to travel and we'll take out seats. So that's the only involvement they seem to have. They're putting the rest back onto you in the local authority and the National Transport Authority to do something with the footpaths.
Yeah, and look, people will have to accept that that's the reality, that if the responsibility, and obviously they're confident in what they're saying, it's their remit to provide a service, and it's up to the local authority to provide the infrastructure, the National Transport Authority to provide the funding. So therefore, I don't think we need this to be kicked down the road any further. It needs to be dealt with. It's something that I'm pursuing through Wicklow County Council, and I want it brought to a satisfactory conclusion as soon as possible, because I say I am a little annoyed that the works that was undertaken only 3 or 4 years ago is outdated so quickly, but we have to get over that. They're just not fit for purpose if that's the case. And as I said earlier, it's a case of meeting everyone's needs. And on this occasion, the 3 organisations that we're talking about are letting down people in Gareth's situation.
Yeah. Do you know, I've never used the 133. Is this full? I'm just sort of thinking, if they did take out a couple of seats to facilitate the wheelchair, could they not leave them those chairs out all the time. If the bus is never full, it might be full. I don't know.
Well, a separate issue. I have an individual constituent from the Newtown Mount Kennedy area who's been onto Dublin Bus and Bus Eireann in regards to the service provided by the 133, and has listed dates and times where the bus doesn't turn up at all. And that's why, we're going to end up in a situation where people have to give 24 hours notice, and then a bus is going to turn up late. And as I say, I have 14 examples, and this has been passed on to their customer service desk. And it seems to be that the 133 service needs looking at in regards to how well the service is running at the moment. But that's a separate issue to what we're talking about. But I just wouldn't like to see a situation where we have people who've given them 24 hours notice and find themselves sitting on the side of the road there for a couple of hours. And as I say, I have the data supplied to me by a constituent who has illustrated and timed all that, where the bus has actually failed to turn up.
Yeah, they don't mention that in the very long statement they sent to us, unfortunately. Yeah. But listen, where do we go from here? Is the National Transport Authority going to come up with the money, and is Wicklow County Council going to do the work on the bus stops to revise them so that these double-deckers can have people like Gareth board the bus?
Well, I think it's a matter of urgency that it would happen as soon as possible. At the end of the day, the infrastructure isn't suitable, so therefore the council needs to act quickly. I know we're going to hear the same old story that down to funding and finance, but the National Transport Authority, there's an obligation on them to step in here too. And I believe that it should be a matter of urgency for everybody. There is a delegation going to meet the Minister for Transport in regards to issues in County Wicklow and the road network and that. And, I don't believe it needs to be taken that far just yet, because I think common sense should prevail here. Yeah. And we do have a...
Bus Eireann might be in a bind as well in some other way, because they'll probably have to make the fleet more modern in a few years' time, and they will go out to tender, and it'll all be down to cost and what's the best cost I can get to get me new buses, maybe in 2022 or 2023 or whatever. And they mightn't suit the infrastructure changes you make to the footpaths. So you'll have to change them all back again,
Well, this is a fair question in regards to how much interaction is there between the National Transport Authority, the local authorities throughout the state, and the service providers. Because, as you say, if we're going to end up in a situation where we have to modernise footpaths and every 3 or 4 years, to me it's a waste of money. If it could be quite easily resolved between everybody, that they sit down and say, well, look at it, when you're updating your fleet, this is a necessity that it can accommodate what the infrastructure that's in. But that's probably too simplistic, but
yeah, well,
I would like to see something like that happen.
Will you let us know for Gareth's sake anyway what the story is, and we'll give the National Transport Authority a shout and just to see what their plans are to modify the bus stops. And of course, it's only some of the fleet that the double deckers that actually will be able to use the footpath. So there'll be other buses still on that route where Gareth won't be able to use. They could find themselves waiting on the next one. I think they're an hour apart, aren't they?
Well, that's it, yeah. So, it's all up in the air, and it's too uncertain, to be honest with you.
Yeah. All right, John, we'll keep in contact with us and see if even Wicklow County Council have heard from the National Transport Authority on this issue, and if there's any money and what's the story. Would you mind?
No, definitely not. I'll come back and let you know, Declan.
That'd be great.
Let your listenership know as well.
All right. Thanks very much indeed, John. Good morning to you. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. John Snell there, the Sinn Féin councillor for Rathnew, and the story of Gareth Jameson. Trying to get from where he lives to where he wants to go in Wicklow, but having these problems put in his way, and he's a wheelchair user. I don't know, thought it was access to all. Let's hope we can resolve it anyway. The Holiday Dock talking cruises in just a second.
The Morning Show.